Well, welcome to the Fear Itself podcast. We have a returning guest. Anthony Vaney is back with us. And this is a place where we talk about horror movies because it's fun to talk about what scares us.
Absolutely.
And this time you brought the suggestion to me. Fiona gave us the last one with Skeleton Key, which was a banger.
Yeah.
So it was a good one.
People like Skeleton Key, I guess.
People, yeah.
Love Kate Hudson.
Yeah. People like 2004, maybe.
They do. They like the early 2000s. This is a thing. I promise you, yes.
We're gonna run through the early 2000s films, and Anthony, you're just gonna be the staunch defender of this time period for movies.
I shall be. Yeah.
Well, if there's one thing that's true, the writing really is solid.
Absolutely.
And with this one, Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, which is what we're covering today. And you know what's funny is I actually watched a lot of his other stuff recently too.
Did you?
Just incidentally, I was looking up his other filmography.
Right.
And I had watched Paranoia Agent. I think I've told you about that.
Yes,
before.
That's right. Yeah.
And I was like, because I was watching this, and it's about identity, about dissociation, and that one also has concepts of multiple personality disorder.
Right.
Which is
a key concept of this film. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Mandy a bit about this too.
Sure.
And because we watched it together, and so she gave me a little bit more of an education about sort of the disorders you see in this movie, which is because multiple personality disorder isn't really a thing categorized anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So it's dissociative personality disorder.
Dissociative, paranoia,
and then psychosis.
Yeah, psychosis for it, right? Yeah.
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 So
all shared by that character. Right?
So maybe I'll ask you, why did you bring this one up first? What kind of drew you in with it?
That's a great question. So. A few years back, I was working abroad, as you know, and somebody I was working with, she was a fan of psychological thriller type films as well, and so we got to talking. And to be fair, many people, for where she comes from, aren't really into this kind of thing. It's not really a thing there. So the fact that she was interested in it was interesting enough for me to check this out.
Yeah.
So she actually had this DVD, funny enough, of Perfect Blue, and so she's like, gave it to me. She's like, yeah, try it out and bring it back to me when you're done, kind of thing. I was like, okay, cool. And I had kind of forgotten actually what the movie was supposed to be about. So when I saw it, because the cover of the DVD is literally just of the main character. Oh, okay. And it just has a blue covering, and it's just called Perfect Blue, and all this kind of stuff. So it doesn't actually give you any detail.
Okay.
So I had finally sat down to watch it one day, and the beginning of the film, which I guess we'll get into pretty quickly, but the beginning of the film made me wonder, why am I watching this? Okay. Because I wasn't sure where we were going. Not until you see the stalker in the crowd, and how the animation changes with him versus, what's her name? Is Mima or something? So
here I want to actually bring this up because the names are interested in this. Mima is her name.
Right.
And then you also have Rumi,
her manager. Yeah.
And then you also have Mr. Me Mania.
Right.
And so it's there's a little bit of a circle between those syllables.
They're so similar, right?
It's confusing in a sense. Not just because we're horrible with languages and dealing with other cultures, but it's also, there is a little bit of that mirroring. Of their names, because Mr. Me Mania is it's like saying it over and over again.
Right.
But I thought that was interesting.
Right, and then hearing Mima and Rumi and all these ones, you do get them mixed up, right? Yeah. So up until that point, watching this movie, and then when I finally got through all of it, I do remember thinking oh yeah, this movie's creepy. Yeah. This movie's really good, but it is creepy.
Yeah. So some interesting things about Satoshi Kon too, the director. So he so Darren Aronofsky, when he was directing Requiem for a Dream, actually cites this or he actually paid homage to this film in Requiem for a Dream with scenes. And Satoshi Kon apparently took a little bit of
offense to this.
Not offense, he was just probably mad that he thought it was more like plagiarism, I guess.
Sure.
They did meet at some point and talked about it too, but I don't know if they buried the hatchet on that or not. Well, but Aronofsky also wrote a eulogy for him when he died.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, because this film was 1997, is it? Perfect
2000.
Blue? Or is it 2000? Oh, okay, so it's not as old. Okay, so 2000. Requiem for a Dream is 2000 and...
Guess it's got to be after that.
Yeah, must be 2002 or something. So okay, fair enough. But
another really well written movie. Anyway.
Yes. Well, if they didn't bury the hatchet or make amends of some sort, then that'd be unfortunate. But no,
you can see the influence that Kon has on Aronofsky, even in the film Ballet.
The Black
Swan.
So Natalie Portman, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you can see that that sort of descent into madness, that dissociation, that
absolutely
loss of innocence, and that turning towards
and not knowing whether or not what's real or not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I think Aronofsky obviously kept playing with those concepts throughout his career, so you can see why Khan would be such a mentor or somebody who he looked up to and referenced in his filmmaking. So
big proponent for this kind of thing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. For sure. So I think that, where do we start with this film is the confusing part that you started with.
Sure,
like, why am I watching this?
Why am I watching this? Well, because I wanted to hear your thoughts as well, and also because you and I, you longer obviously for other reasons, but like you lived in Japan for a period of time.
Yeah.
And I was there. We've both been there a couple times. I was there when you were there.
Yeah, you visited me.
I visited you, and then like both you and I went there at separate times later in life, right? Over the past 10 years. And when you saw the beginning of this movie, did you find it like absolutely Japanese? Like the
100%.
Right? Absolute everything is like there's like a Power Rangers thing going on, but it's Super Sentai, I guess you'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because there is those like the Power Rangers are just the one that made it to America. There's a lot of TV shows that were like that.
That's true. That's true.
In that time and to the present, I would say too, there's idol culture, which is where you have pop singers.
Everybody loves these people.
Yeah.
But they only love what they're personifying in their music or their
which is
image,
the difficult part of this, right? Because it's an ideal. It's an idol.
Right.
But it is an ideal that they're pushing out there, and for Japanese culture, that's that very innocent, cute looking perspective, and it borders on trying to push that idea of perfection, right?
Exactly.
Which I mean,
that person in their mind must be that person. Right?
Exactly.
And I would even go so far to extend not even just Japanese culture, but like a lot of East Asian culture.
Yeah, because you lived in Chinese.
I lived in
China
for that long.
6 years.
They also have a very similar thing,
Yeah.
or at least they think that's what it should be, kind of thing, right? But their idols also have to be very perfect or whatever from there. I know South Korea also the same thing with their K-pop stars.
Yeah,
all this kind of stuff.
and you see like a lot of pushback against that too. And this film's obviously a pushback against that.
Well,
that culture.
that's the theme of it, right? Something we don't really have, but we can still kind of see it in this kind of film. So it's good that. Good for that.
Well, Mima is an idol, and
she's a pop star, isn't she? Yeah, she's
exactly.
a singer. Yeah.
But it's really interesting that idea of the idol in Japanese culture, where it's not just a pop singer, it's something more. It's like an identity. Yeah, and so and again, that sort of figure that people know when you say idol, they know what they mean. There's figurines of them. There's images of them. They're in all of the different magazines and stuff. So it's them. It's like a specific subculture of celebrity.
Right.
And so, but as she's suffering through the fact that they're not getting paid that much.
Right. Because
I don't think it's as, I guess, lucrative.
Right.
At least in this day and age. I'm sure it's much more lucrative now, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine with. Actually, I think they even make a comment about the Wi-Fi is just becoming kind of a thing in this movie, which is like
I actually love the internet parts of this.
Right, yeah.
They're just like discovering the internet. And you know what? It was funny watching with Mandy, too, because she was
She's also a computer science person.
Well, you think about a lot of those films. We talked about it when we talked about Skeleton Key, how inaccurate the internet portrayals are.
Right.
Where it's like, what are we looking at? It's like, these people don't know what the internet is. They've opened like a documents folder and they're typing something. It's like an intranet thing.
Right.
But no, they actually, what I really appreciate about Perfect Blue and just the art in it and anime of that time is how well it imitates reality.
Yes.
Because she's got the Macintosh that she eventually sets up, and then the internet and the web pages are of that time period, right? They're not. It's not groping in the dark for what the internet is, I guess.
I think they're a little bit ahead on that, right?
At least they know what's going on.
They're kind of new. I think the guy. Like the director, the producers, the artists, everybody, they kind of knew what they were trying to make, so they probably had an idea for this. But it is still partly in Mima's idea, right? Like she doesn't quite know what everything is there.
Yeah.
Had this movie come out nowadays, so to speak, I mean, even with all my complaints about current film, but this is a Japanese one, I think there still would have been that, like, as a pop star, maybe something would have changed because she would have been having a little bit more of a lucrative lifestyle. She would have had like this kind of idea. So maybe the same elements of what happened in the story. So it needs to be set in this time.
Well, I think when you're talking about like mental illness and stuff.
Also, now knowledge of that is now. Yeah,
well,
for sure.
I actually thought after watching this, what a perfect film for 2023, because that's obviously a big point of discussion in the last 5 to 10 years is sort of that deterioration and the pressures of culture and living up to those expectations.
Right.
It's always a relevant discussion, but you know, this film is ahead of its time in that way. Absolutely. But I'm sure that pressure at that time was also great as well. But always financially motivated is a huge part of that. Like you think about, you know, for you and I, it's a lot of the choices you make are financially motivated.
Of course. So they have to be.
And sometimes you do compromise some of your identity to make a choice. Like you take a job you don't want.
Exactly.
You do things that
work long hours, you do the hard work, and then hopefully you get the amount of money to do what you want to do afterwards, right? This is like the key concept of normally of living, right? Some people do it differently, which is great, but you know, it's one of those things. For Mima though, she's also not in that normal lifestyle already, right? Because people see her as that, and I guess as the Mima, the pop star, and everybody loves her, and everybody like wants to be like, oh my god, you're great, all this stuff, and especially that stalker guy, right? And they just can't get that image out of their head, and it's just it you know, you could feel the stress of like what she is, right? So if I'm not mistaken, so she wants to leave that because she wants to get more money, but she also wants to change that identity, right? She doesn't want to be seen as that cutesy pop star person anymore.
I think there is definitely a component of that where, you know, you don't want to be that innocent ideal because in a sense it's not you. And so when you're
sooner or later she's going to do something, right?
Well, and everybody kind of experiences that turning point at some point. It's the loss of innocence where you make that choice to basically get into the real world yourself. And it's interesting that her first line in her first show, because she gets onto a detective show and they're proposing things, her first line is, "Who are you?"
That's right.
She's asking it of somebody else, but it's really a great callback when you think about what she's doing throughout the film is she's coming to terms with that change in identity.
Yes.
And what compromises you have to make.
Symbolism of beginning, right? Yeah, exactly.
Symbology.
The symbology of it. Thank you. Well, yes. No, you're right. The symbology of it. But it's, and I guess also like when she moves on to more and more, I guess we'll say like more specific scenes of her crime drama, right? And the things that happen to her character in the show. And how that's definitely the opposite of what people would see her as, right?
Yeah, well, point by point, she's a dancer in the beginning. She makes that choice to become an actress. And then her first scene, there's not very many lines.
Yeah.
And then in order to get more lines, she has to play a bigger role in that. And what they find for her is to do a rape scene.
Exactly.
Which is a very big jump off the deep end when you think about it.
Of course.
But because she's in such a precarious situation where she's not able to get those big roles anyways, it is a huge leap.
Yep.
And she's pushed towards that. She's pushed in two directions. So she's got two managers. She's got Rumi and Tadakoro. And so between the two of them, he's kind of pushing her to take that step. She's trying to pull her back.
Right.
And so Rumi's kind of trying to pull her back towards that idol personality. And Tadakoro is trying to be like,
no, you
do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Yeah. You could be a star. You can do this. You can do this. You have to make sure that you're willing to commit to these kinds of roles.
And I don't necessarily think that he's not a malicious figure necessarily.
No, I think he's a manager.
Yeah,
he's definitely a manager. Yeah. It's just he's trying to make money.
Yeah.
But he's trying to make it off of them, and then he's trying to get a new star.
Yeah.
Right. He's trying to become that kind of person. You know, he's a manager. He's absolutely a manager. He's doing his job.
Yeah.
Whether or not we would agree with his way of doing it is one thing. But even Rumi on the other side is also, I guess, also a manager. And then we'll talk more about her later. But like her system of doing things is very much that, you know, she's pulling her back, as you mentioned. And that's also not good because then she can never grow.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
an actress or as whatever position she wants to be in, right?
Yeah, it's the angel and the devil on her shoulder talking back and forth because like you can't. Are you going to stay in the same place forever, or are you going to take a step too far?
Exactly. And there's more of that symbology, right? As we're talking, right? Dissociative disorders.
I was just think too hard of like I think too hard of the Boondock Saints whenever symbolism comes up. I'm like, what is the symbolism of these things? It's in my head permanently, so I always have to call it out. No, but you're right. Like the whole idea is that transition point, and I think this film is largely about transition and identity and how challenging that is because you're either holding back, pushing too far forward, or are you able to actually find that balance?
Right.
And I think it's an oscillation, right? You kind of have to do one to do the other. But what's tragic about her is that she takes that step so far so fast.
Yes.
Where it's all the way from innocence all the way to like something very extreme.
No longer innocent.
No longer innocent at all. And so she feels that pain and that that loss, because she grieves it immediately in her room alone.
That's right.
Where she said, I didn't really want to do this. Right. I just wanted to do this to meet these expectations.
Try to go better, try to become better.
And you think about different cultures in that regard and meeting expectations in Japan. I think that's why this film was so widely regarded and why it, caught on so much and has sort of a lasting impact once it's been introduced. Because once it's in the zeitgeist, you see why it would be so hard to live in a culture that's so pressured.
Yeah.
Not only to conform, but to maintain a certain persona.
Of course.
And so maintaining that, and I think every culture has its own ideals and things that we look up to and trying to maintain.
Yeah.
But I think that Japan is uniquely positioned where they're a little bit more so in that direction too, where it's a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, they definitely have a stronger, and you know this better than I think they definitely have a stronger sense of like who somebody is or what they're supposed to be in society, right?
Well, you're pushed so hard in those directions.
Yeah.
Because largely people are shaped by society anyways. But I think in Japan there's a little bit more pressure to really maintain a certain standard. You know, you have to do things. You can't
dishonor something. You can't get away from that kind of thing, right? So
yeah, I think it's just when I was living there, a lot of the people were always they always felt a lot of the strain, I think, to just keep pursuing what was normal, what was status quo,
and what they conceived to be normal, right? Or perceived to be normal.
And it wasn't just, it was their peers that were keeping them doing what they were doing. It was the structures themselves. You think about the businesses that they operate within, and that's a difficult thing in and of itself, because like, what do you actually pursue? How can you actually step out of the bounds in that kind of culture? And like, it's interesting when you have Tokyo, when you compare it to someplace like Osaka,
right?
They're completely different. Sure. When you think about even the way they speak, there's an accent called Kansai Ben, which they're speaking differently. It's more colloquial in Osaka, because they're rebelling against that a little bit more. It's more of an art house feel when you're in those places where they're louder, they're more brash, they're not Tokyo.
Right.
And so, but Tokyo tends to be a bit more buttoned down and more business oriented. And I think that, the celebrities and that kind of culture in Japan, it feels like it's almost cut and dry what you're going to be doing in those situations. When you think about what an idol is, you can see she's controlled and influenced so much by her managers, by expectations of others, that largely she doesn't have a choice in what she's doing.
So she doesn't really have an identity at all.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. She is how she's perceived by everybody is basically who she has to become.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Therefore, that's another reason why she breaks down, another reason why she doesn't know who she is. Why it's also, for later the film, right, why it's easier, I'll say, a bit easier for her to believe that she is going crazy.
Yeah.
Because she honestly could not say that, oh, that's not me.
Yeah.
Is it me? Maybe that is, right? So it is a lot easier for her in that way.
She's haunted by that ideal as well, where she sees it in the mirror, she sees it in her reflection, she always sees it, and it keeps getting away from her too. And so
whoever's talking to her online, or whoever's writing for her in her mindset, it's like, I did do that. How did they know I did? Am I doing this? Like, it's
Well, I think the internet's an interesting point too, because it's and it's probably more relevant now, where what is your identity in an online sense too?
Connected to social media and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Absolutely.
When you think about how limited the scope would have been back then, but even how much it matters within the context of the film,
right?
Where that online persona tends to eat at her too, because it's somebody anonymously stating what she's actually thinking sometimes, but not always.
Right.
And
but
so
it makes her think that she's like, wait, am I thinking this? Am I supposed to be thinking this? Or is this me thinking this and I just don't remember thinking this? Right?
Yeah. Because things start to take a left turn for her. They
very quickly.
deviate. Hardest left turn in a lot of
I would say this movie, absolutely, like even just talking about the film as you're watching it, really picks up after her scene in the show. It really picks up, like you see with the stalker and with all this kind of stuff. That's when it really kicks into gear.
Yeah, exactly.
And she really falls down that hole.
Exactly.
And it's like going through her mind and all this stuff with her computer. And I remember the scene, and it's raining out. It's beautifully, beautifully animated. But she's like sitting there, and the rain is falling, and she's sitting there staring at the TV. And those anime eyes of like them. Technical difficulties. Oh, sorry. Wasn't supposed to. I don't know. Anime eyes is a trigger. Remember that. Just gonna.
You killed me, Anthony.
I'll just talk to myself.
I'm keeping this in.
What, the term anime eyes? You're gonna keep this in?
Oh.
Everybody can see. You should make a blooper reel.
Well, these aren't going to be some anime eyes. These are going to be some bloodshot eyes. You're
all right?
I'm okay.
So the anime eyes, like the way they're animated, for lack of a better term, and like her eyes are like the pupils dilate and she's staring at that screen and it's going over her. Like, it's a really well made scene.
Yeah.
And it's creepy, like one of the many creepy scenes of this, and she's talking to herself and she's like, how does this person know who I am? Is this me? Is this? And it really gets to you, and I think that's when it really kicks in.
And I think she thinks partially that she's doing these things because after the rape scene that she filmed, and let's talk about it for a little bit too, because that scene it's harsh.
Yeah.
It's one it doesn't really feel necessarily that it was acted. It was definitely something that a newer actress wouldn't film.
Right.
And something that, to get pressured into that situation, it very much feels like what it actually is.
Right.
And by the end of the film, it almost actually happens again.
Right.
Where that sort of idea of fiction becoming reality by the end of it. But it's a horrific scene, and then right after, you're right, she's sitting there, and you can see that she's losing touch with reality.
Yeah.
That dissociation's beginning. And so again, we talked about it with Mandy, but that psychosis that's happening, losing touch with reality.
Yeah. And
that starts to happen where she starts to imagine herself doing these things.
That's right.
She has, and it's hard for the viewer as well. You know, I got confused.
Sure.
Because I think this was your second time or third time watching it?
Would have been the second time watching it, but it's very, very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting watching it the first time, because you have difficulty keeping track of things. You're like, is she actually murdering these people?
Right. Yeah.
Because somebody gets killed basically right off the get-go. It's interesting because there's earlier violence against Tadakoro, her manager, where he gets sent a letter bomb.
That's right.
And it blows up on him. People are very nonchalant about that letter bomb.
I think it's like the day and age is like, oh, that was probably just an accident, or it's not an accident. It's like it's a one-off thing because it's a big thing for her to transfer to this. So obviously you're going to have fans who lose their minds a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that even nowadays. Talking about how relevant this film is nowadays, is that many film critics tend to blame fans of movies or people who watch these movies for how poorly they do, or like the negative responses. Well, obviously the negative responses because it's the people who watch them, but it's because of these people who want this movie to be bad. They're the reasons for it, and it's sad, unfortunately, to think that like these people are paying their money, but they're not allowed to have negative opinions towards it. So now, not stressing. Do not send a bomb to people who, if you don't like a movie, that would be silly.
Don't go full Unabomber.
Yeah,
no Ted Kaczynski.
Exactly. That would be ridiculous. Don't do that. But it is one of those things, right? Like it was a big fan thing because Mima was going over to something different, and people are like, oh, that was my idol, and this is all this, and absolutely was accounted for. So I think that's why they didn't take it as seriously. But then when more people start getting murdered around her characterization and all this kind of stuff, that's when it starts.
Things
to
are changing.
Yes, and people are afraid.
We're a little more concerned now. Yeah.
Yes,
and rightly so.
Absolutely.
Because the first one that really occurs is she takes a step further after the scene that she films, in that she starts filming, or she goes to a photo shoot that's got nude photography in it.
That's right.
And so it's a step beyond and a step really far.
Yeah.
And so it's that full exposure where everybody can see you. Because this film has a lot to do with exposure. Cameras on you. In the very beginning when she's dancing, there's cameras on her.
Yeah. In
her room alone, there's stuffed animals watching her. When all the murders occur, people are stabbed in the eyes.
Yeah.
And it's not an accident, right?
No.
It's carefully chosen symbolism that people are watching her all the time and seeing her at her core. So I think that next step is that nude photography she undergoes. She's not wanting to do that.
Sure.
But then the first real murder that happens there is the photographer.
That's right.
And we're not clear on who murders him. We might think it's her. We might think it's the ultra fan.
Yeah.
We certainly don't. And let's spoil it now.
Yeah.
We're just gonna spoil it now.
Yeah.
It's Rumi.
It's Rumi. It's the manager that's trying to pull her back to being the idol. Yeah.
And she's the one who has that dissociative personality disorder, right? Yeah. Because she's the one who wants to actually be what Mima was.
That's right.
And she could never step into that because she doesn't fit into that. Yeah. She's
yes, right.
Because she wants to be that so much, but she doesn't have the same body. She doesn't have the same appearance.
There it is.
And
images.
So, exactly. So she really wants to be what that is, but in her mind, that desire to be that way, that perfection, something that you can't attain, because the deck was just not stacked in your favor.
Exactly.
And so she wants to be that, and she thinks that it was sort of a waste, I think, that Mima sacrificed that.
Threw it all away to do this, and she loses it. And you kind of get that, right? Like when she's doing that, I think it's during the rape scene, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And Rumi cries.
She does.
And leaves, right? And you're thinking like, okay, no, this is an emotional set. Like even Mima is crying afterwards too, right? Like everybody's even the guy who's gonna do the act in the show even apologizes to her before the scene commences.
Oh man,
like, everybody's emotional.
That might have been like the most unintentionally funny scene in the movie.
Sorry.
She's
like, it's okay. Like on top of her.
You're just like, this is why there's intimacy coordinators now. You think of Game of Thrones, you're like,
oh Jesus,
there's gonna need some psychologists here.
You're gonna need some crazy things going on here. Yeah, no, but
I mean, for both of them too.
Absolutely,
like, oh,
it's committing the act that is unthinkable versus taking the act, which is unthinkable. Like these things are not good for normal people.
It was uncomfortable for everybody, but I mean,
it is
probably much more for Mima.
Oh, of course.
I'm going to say.
Going from there to there, because this guy's probably like a stunt actor. Like, he probably has to do this stuff. Hence why he's apologizing, because he knows what will happen
it's like,
to this,
it's
right?
her second.
Yeah.
It's her second scene.
A hidden hero in this movie is that guy who just wanted to make sure that she was going to be okay, and nothing is actually real.
He was the only one who checked in.
Yeah. Sorry. That's all it takes. All it takes. But no, having Rumi, witness this, she cries and she leaves. You just think, okay, no, she's emotional. Like, that was her baby in a way, right? The creation of Mima, the personality, is now gone, right? Innocence is gone, dead, all this kind of stuff. Like, there's a reason why you'd think Rumi would be upset about that.
Yeah.
But it goes so much deeper.
Yeah.
And I love how you put that, like because I didn't really think about it before, but it's like her idea, how she created it, how she makes it. And then for Mima just to suddenly say, you know what, it's not for me. I want something new. And you're like, but I can't be you.
Yeah.
Right? And just throws it away. Like, no wonder she goes crazy in her own little mind, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't take it as a job. It's personal.
Well, let's talk about, like, losing touch with reality. Because, like, everybody experiences some pretty fucked up things in their life that makes you, like, sort of question your choices.
Yes.
And what I actually like about the film is, in the end, there's sort of a reconciliation by the end. Where
she goes to visit her. Yeah,
well, she goes to visit her, but she's also come to terms with those choices.
Oh, with herself. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she looks in the mirror or whatever, right?
Exactly. Because with the choices that we make, there is that fallout that happens from them.
Yes.
Where it's, you go too far, you have to do a bit of course correction, you do things that you don't necessarily want to because of pressure from other people and society, and then you do come to terms with the fact that you did decide to do those things too. That there was a part of you that wanted to make that progress and take that step forward.
Right.
And so, with her in the end, it's good to actually see that she does make some peace with that. And there's
after everything that happened.
Between what we were discussing and the end, there's a lot of hell to pay too.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting that they chose acting as sort of the vehicle to talk about this stuff, because it is that confusion between reality and what's fake.
How many people play characters and lose themselves in their characters, right?
Yeah.
This happens all the time. Yeah. Well, maybe not as much anymore, but for a long time it was
method acting.
Method acting is a thing. Yeah. People get right into it. I think there are people actually that kind of draw them back. Draw them back into like the way of who they actually are in some regard. There's some kind of tether.
Yeah, you gotta have to have something that anchors you.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really have an anchor. She's away from her family. She calls her mom regularly throughout the film.
Sorry,
there's nothing that really anchors her.
To interrupt you for a second, this film is filmed in Tokyo, correct? This is set in Tokyo. Sorry, like animated. Is it Tokyo, right?
Where from what I gather, it looks like
it looks like Tokyo, right? Yeah. Like the buildings and everything.
Yeah, like again, animation is on point, and like as far as I can like recognize. I'm thinking of the film. I don't think it ever actually. I don't know if it specifies it, but
I'm trying to think. I feel like it would. Well, just basically by like the where all these things are being shot, the pop stars, all this kind of stuff. I feel like it's a fairly important thing.
Like,
but it's not like other cities wouldn't have.
No,
it, maybe at this time though, this period of time.
Yeah, it very much looks like Tokyo to me.
Okay.
So.
Well, then definitely if this is, somebody can correct this later if this is not true, but if it is indeed in Tokyo, this definitely makes sense for this girl, young, pretty girl, leaves a small town, Japan, which happens all the time. They go to the big city to make it big because she has a talent.
Yeah.
And then, absolutely, she has no family.
Yeah.
Her friends are her managers.
Yeah.
Because she's always working. Like, even, like, another thing, too, like, her bandmates. I think they're seen a couple times. They went off and did their own thing, right? Because she split off.
Duo.
They became a duo.
And became more successful than her.
Right.
Which has got to fuck with your head.
Right, yeah. She's like pissed off. Yeah, for sure. So she talks with them once or twice, but I think she feels like there's resentment towards them in some way.
I think she's trying to be happy for them, but I don't.
But she's losing,
losing her marbles a little bit. Yeah, because it's not going well for her.
Right.
Like, she's getting the scenes, but it's not like it's joy that she's experiencing. It's sorrow.
Right.
And so I think she wants to be happy because she's sitting in with the managers, and inside the room they're celebrating their success as a duo, making it onto like the top 100 list or whatever.
That's right.
Build our top 100.
Right.
Top 40s?
The top 40s here.
I think they have top 100s there, but whatever. But either way,
I wish we had more top music rather than those stupid 40 over and over and over again. But
I mean,
that's just me.
I listen to the same 40 songs anyways. Linkin Park forever. Fate.
Older Linkin Park, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always older.
Yeah, it's always older.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Jester. Anyway.
It's because people lose touch with reality.
Yeah, I mean, go off side tangent here. Even linking speaking of which, linking Linkin Park to this movie in a way, there are a lot of like these little symbolic things that kind of transpire between the two, right? Because like what they sing about losing their minds and losing everything going on here and violence and all this kind of stuff is very much what's in this movie.
Yeah.
Even though I know Linkin Park probably has no. Like, even though it came out around the time, I don't know, maybe there was an influence there. Maybe.
There could have been a little bit of like...
There's a couple music videos, actually, they did do a very good, and it was Breaking the Habit.
Okay.
Which is actually very much... You know what? That's something to investigate. I wonder if that was something related.
Between Perfect Blue and Linkin Park.
Yeah. Somebody do something on this. It's probably nothing, but, you never know.
Just in case.
Because Anyway, sorry, that just like... made me think for a second, because sometimes those scenes would actually kind of correspond. That's what I was thinking. Actually, during my favorite scene of this movie, when the whole reveal of Rumi being thinking that she's the Mima pop star idol and dressed in it and all this kind of stuff, and the imagery of having that glowing pop star, right, of the Mima personality, but then in the reflection, it's crazy Rumi.
Yeah.
Oh, that sent shivers down my spine, but I love it. Like, I love that creepiness of it. It's so good. And then when she's chasing him, you see, like, of the Mima, right? Like, and then, like, in the window, it's Rumi, like evil, right?
Yeah.
It's so creepy. But anyway, sorry. That scene reminds me very much of the Breaking the Habit music video, because it's pouring rain, and there's all these kinds of, and they're running away from things, and anyway, very, very good song.
Right. But we're gonna have to go to YouTube year 2000 and do a Linkin Park anime crossover. It's not gonna be Naruto fighting Sasuke, but it'll be great.
Must be. It's like 2003, so this would have been after that probably, or 2001, so it was after that anyway. Could have been influenced. Just saying.
I did actually find it like I found it compelling that Rumi was the culprit in the end.
Yes.
There's technically two. Rumi's the main one because she influences
Mima.
Mania. Mr. Mania,
right?
Because he's the super fan who's sort of responsible for that sort of otaku culture.
Yeah.
Where he's that person who's lurking in the background who's very obsessed with Mima's original image.
Yeah.
And does not like the change.
Yeah.
And
can't let it go.
Can't let it go.
Yeah.
And so he was influenced strongly by Rumi. Right. So he was.
Yeah. He was sent. emails or something from her.
I believe
that
that's
was what it was. Yeah. And then he did do the first killing or something.
Yes.
The first couple killings.
Yeah.
And then when he did the last killing, she killed him to.
Yeah, because he does attempt to rape Mima.
Right.
And so that act is carried out, and that part is a little bit confusing because you think that it's just him,
right,
and that it will be resolved upon his death,
right.
But obviously her ongoing psychosis, and then Rumi being the main villain, and then Tadakoro is also murdered in that same instance.
Yep. So that's because they're found on top of each other.
Exactly.
And I do remember thinking to myself, like, okay, so it must be. I mean, rule of thumb when you're watching a mystery film and you're trying to figure out who it is, because I do this because my brain won't stop doing it, then you're kind of left with like, okay, the only obvious person must be Rumi. But the thing that made me stop thinking that at the time was, how the hell does Rumi's like this tall? So like we'll say Mima's like this tall, and then Rumi's like this tall. Like, she's not very tall. How can she kill two fully adult grown men and leave them like this? Mind you, they got stabbed in the eye.
Yeah.
So what I assumed it was, I keep calling him the stalker, Mr. What is it?
Me-mania.
Me-mania. He definitely would have killed most of the people.
Yeah,
absolutely. She coerced him to do so, and then at the end, when he was like back was turned or whatever, she got him, and then that was under her personality of of Mima's image, right? Because that's what she sees it as. And then when Mima sees them dead there, and then she freaks out and then blacks out and all this kind of stuff. I think that's.
I do want to draw a connection here too between Satoshi Kon's work in this film and Paranoia Agent, which he does in 2004.
Okay.
So Paranoia Agent is something else that he made, and it was a short series.
Okay.
But it does include elements of that dissociative personality disorder as well. Sure. There's one specific episode that's dedicated to that as well. So I think he does have this sort of fixation on that, or where he has some knowledge about it, or maybe some idea of it.
Past experience of it, maybe.
Yeah. Or maybe it's even that, you know, there is a little bit more dissociation that's required in cultures that have more pressure.
Very well.
And so,
very well. It could be, yeah.
Because like it would be very painful when you think of Rumi's perspective to never be able to live up to what you wanted to become, and Mima to have achieved that and then to be transitioning on. It'd be hard to watch somebody leave that behind. And so, you know, in that sense, you can kind of understand Rumi's perspective. Obviously, being mentally unwell is not a choice, and so, but it's
how she goes about it.
And how like that push to towards the end of influencing other people, and you know, posting online on Mima's room the whole time, where you know the website itself that Rumi creates is talking about. It's sort of like a dialogue of what she thinks that Mima should be thinking, and what she should be talking about. But really, those aren't Mima's words at all.
It's not Mima.
No,
because it's not who she is.
It's not who she is. Fundamentally,
it's the personality.
It's the personality.
It's the idol, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Which Rumi is trying to become.
Well, and she's trying to outrun it all the time, and that's why I do like the ending of this film. There is catharsis in the end of it, because after she goes through all of this trouble, and she's attacked in the end by Rumi as well. After
chased out of a window.
Yeah. Of
the building on the rooftops, and I think she's screaming for help too.
Yeah.
So okay,
Rumi can move.
As a short little chubby woman, she can move very quickly.
She was coming after him after her like an anime character.
Yeah, very much like an anime character. Like you would think, right? Like with a sword, but doesn't have a sword or anything.
Freaking coming after her like Jason Voorhees.
You know what? She was carrying a knife, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
I think she was carrying some kind of small weapon. She had it
for sure.
But in like that little image that you see with like the glowing Mima, like she's just like freakishly happy, right? Like glowing all this kind of stuff, not at all threatening. But Rumi is absolutely threatening.
Yes.
But this is one thing I did find kind of funny, not necessarily ha-ha funny, but just kind of interesting, when she's running around and she's screaming for help. And there's nobody in Tokyo or wherever she is for that. I thought it was a little bit...
Okay, here's some... I'm going to
offer it's the middle of the night,
as an interpretation. I'm maybe pushing things a little far here.
Yeah.
But when somebody's screaming for help, people would respond to that.
Yeah, normally.
You'd think.
Normally.
Not in Tokyo. And I want to illustrate this with a point that I actually saw in Tokyo.
Because
because people will ignore you there largely. And even if you're overreacting to something, if you're doing something out of the norm, people will, and I've done some ludicrous stuff in Tokyo that was out of the norm.
Sure.
I say that. But I recall one specific instance of a guy, I think I told you about this too,
sure,
where he was having obviously the worst day of his life.
Right.
And I was just at a train station kind of watching people cross by. He was standing sort of in a path between people coming and going in two different directions.
Of course.
And his iPod was not working. He had just one of the old iPod, I'm going to age myself here.
Like the Shuffle or something?
Yeah.
Or...
No, he had like a Nano or something.
Oh,
like that,
sure.
whatever.
Okay, yeah.
It was like one
the
of
small one, right?
Yeah, it was. It had a screen and stuff. Yeah, it wasn't...
Oh, the Mini. The iPod Mini, wasn't it? The Mini was like this big or something?
Something like that.
Whatever. Old iPod, yeah.
Old iPod.
No longer an iPhone, yeah.
It was not working, and he was not happy about it. And like this dude just lost his fucking shit with his iPod.
Really?
And he threw it on the ground and he just like stamped on it for like a good like minute and a half.
This
and
does
no
sound
one
familiar,
looked at him
yeah.
or reacted whatsoever.
Interesting.
And it was like I was watching him. I was like,
yeah.
this dude's fucking losing his shit.
Yeah, something's gonna go bad. Yeah, he could do something.
And so
interesting. So everybody has been
just
like trained not to they're trained not to react to certain things like that.
I think places like New York and Tokyo got to be like that, where there's so many people that you're just like, I don't have the brain capacity to react to like what's going on here right now, so I'm gonna ignore it because I got my own things going on. And I think that's sort of what was happening. That maybe it's an overinterpretation, but I think people weren't listening to her cries for help because they just didn't care. Sure. Maybe they had their own stuff going on, and when you think about your own identity and what's going on with you, you largely ignore other people's.
For sure.
Yeah.
I suppose because like so the man that you're talking about, was he also like dressed in like a suit or something? Right? Like he was a businessman, right? Yeah. So yeah, he must have had a horrible day, did all this kind of stuff. Now, the only thing I can say against that, if that were the case in this situation with Mima being chased and everything, is that was a guy who was clearly getting upset about a situation that was just involved him.
Sure.
So other people could definitely look like, oh, he's upset at his iPod. Like, who knows what happened? Bam, bam, bam. Maybe they've seen it before.
Yeah.
But this girl is being chased down the street in the middle of the night by another woman carrying a knife. I believe it's a knife.
Yeah.
And she is freaking out and screaming. And not only that, she's recognizable. Yeah. This is Mima. She's a pop star. Like she was definitely now again, middle of the night, maybe people don't see her or can't see her. But I just remember in those for lack of a better term, shots, I don't know if there were many people on the street. I think that's what kind of threw me. Yeah. Because Tokyo is a busy time all throughout the day. However, for the sake of this movie, like it's okay. Like she gets away at the end, and I think Rumi gets hit by a car.
Well, I think what ends up happening is because they're fighting and and then they get Rumi gets pushed through a window, I believe. And stabs her in the gut.
Right.
The shards.
Yes, there we go. Yeah.
And then I believe, I can't remember if they actually get hit by the car. I remember the car coming and then.
I think she pushes her out of the way. That's what it was, right? Right. And she gets knocked into the window or whatever.
Something happens there.
Something happens.
And then that's when we cut to the end, right? Where we realize
Rumi's insane asylum or whatever you want to call it.
A locked ward of some kind.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and she's still having those delusions where
thinks she's Mima, the personality. Yeah.
And then Mima's actually this is where I like that catharsis that happens.
Sure.
Because I think she's come to terms with what's happened, and she's no longer, I guess, having difficulties with who she's become.
Well, I think that's exactly it. I think she at the end of this I'm going to use the wrong one.
Symbolism.
The symbolism of this, right?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Because
I permanently messed this up for people.
You keep on like doing that, so I'm just like now I have to think about it myself. I do know the difference, but like the symbolism of it is if you can think about it. So when Rumi comes out and she is the image of what Mima was, and then she's getting chased after by her former personality, her former idol thing. This is Mima getting chased after that by whatever else happens, getting chased. No one can help her. I think she has this realization at the end, and this is probably during the time between that scene and, of course, when she goes to visit Rumi, and she gets this catharsis, and she realizes, so even though I was that person, nobody was ever going to save me. Yeah. Nobody could ever help me. I was me, and this is the person that she actually is.
Look at that analysis, Anthony. Did you study fucking English or something?
Shut up. I didn't actually, but shut up. I did a little bit, but no. I think it's just one of those. It's just a beautifully crafted narrative. right? Just a great story.
Tight ass script.
Absolutely, and it's something.
Look at these 2,000 films and their tight ass scripts, Anthony.
And this is a foreign film for us, right? This is a Japanese film, and this is an animated film. Many people all over the world would think of this movie. They look at it, the movie Perfect Blue, and on the cover of this movie is this beautiful girl on it, and they're like, oh, it must be some children's movie. They have no idea what this kind of thing is, but this movie is so well done.
You take that step into anime world, and you're like, oh my god!
You realize, this is not always for children. Yes, so that's. I mean, even talking about Skeleton Key or whatever movies, like when you have scripts that kind of have just even if the acting is not always great, or even if the animation is not always to par, right? That script, it matters. That story matters. Like it really. And you get these kind of conversations with people. Like, we can go on for hours about a movie.
Well, I wonder too with animation, when you think about how important the script is, because
the animation really has to make that work too.
It does, but when you're animating something by hand, as this clearly was, you think about how deliberate every step is. Absolutely. I wonder if it forces you to make a better script. Because at that time,
no cut corners.
You're thinking, okay, I'm going to animate this. I think it's 80 minutes long, so hour and 20. Yeah. So shorter. But it's if you're going to go through the problems of animating every one of these cells and putting it out like that, your script damn well better be good.
Yep. Your storyboards have to line up by the word. Like, they have to be up there for sure, because then that's not anything out of place, and this story may not make sense to somebody.
Yeah.
Right? It absolutely has to. But I think at the end, and then everything you and I have talked about when it comes to Psychosis, or like all these things about Mima personality, and maybe once or twice she's talking about how she doesn't want to be that kind of person anymore. But this is all speculation from us. This is all what we get from the movie, and the fact that we can get that out of it is something else entirely. Like, we know that Rumi went crazy with thinking that she was that's obvious because it's in the movie. But why Mima comes to terms with it like seemingly so quickly afterwards is probably because of this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is in her mind. So
well, and I think it is that coming to terms, right? Whereas like she was somewhere in between those things. She didn't want to be that idol anymore. She didn't want to be some extreme version of an actress. Yeah. But she wanted to be an actress, I think. Yeah. And
I think she still likes being on camera. Yeah. She wanted to, you know what? I think she wanted to be taken seriously. Yeah. Right? She doesn't want to be seen as this child pop star type of person. But she doesn't want to see as like this downer, like, oh, she does like those horrible scene type of things all the time. She just wants to be taken seriously, like any normal person does. Like that's all she wanted, was to be a person. Like, she just wanted to be taken seriously. That's all it was. And in the end,
it seems like she achieved that.
She achieved it. Yeah. So she looks at herself in the mirror and she's confidently looking at herself.
Yeah. Right? So I mean, at the end of the day, that's all anybody wants to achieve.
I think so.
Look at yourself in the mirror and accept what
you're
looking at.
Yes.
You're like, are we there today? I don't know if we're there today.
Every day in every way.
Well, I like that we picked something that was a psychological thriller and elements of horror too. Absolutely. Because is this overtly a horror movie? Not necessarily, but it is. It does.
Gives you enough.
Yeah. We make this podcast. We can pick what we do. Yeah.
It's enough of a fear itself to say that it's.
There's elements of horror in it. Yeah, of course. If it's not overtly horror, it's horror adjacent or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And like I'm looking at the books behind you, the Red Dragon, and
the Necronomicon. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, Necronomicon's probably straight up horror, but I think that the Hannibal.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. About that, they're more psychological thrillers now. Yeah. I would argue that the Red Dragon is horror, but I think the other ones, and probably Silence of the Lambs is horror. I mean, obviously that.
Well, it has elements. Yeah. Well, mostly elements of horror, right, with some like suspense to it. But absolutely, for sure, yeah.
But horror is such a broad genre that like you wanna think about the psychological elements as well. And this one is an unsettling film, and it does make you think about where are you at with your identity and what's influencing you to make those choices about yourself, about who you want to become. Yeah. What are you getting away from? What are you working towards? Yeah. What's too much?
Who are you within this, right?
Yeah. And within the context of being Canadian, I think it's, it's a very open-ended question. There's not much cultural identity that Canadians have.
That's something that, you and I have witnessed this firsthand, too, because we've been in these places where, your culture and some things like this, like their identity is a very important part of their life, right? Yeah. Culture of, I'll go as far as like Canada, the United States, Australia, like these immigrant countries, so to speak. they are very much like, they don't have cultural dissociation sort of kind of with this, but it's, if you're not from these immigrant countries, you may not have that kind of culture if you grow up in the country.
Well, Canada's young.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Well, that's hence why we have a culture. Don't get me wrong. We have a culture, but it's not
quite sure what it is.
It's nowhere near as prevalent as even the British culture.
No.
The British have an absolute culture. The French have an absolute culture. Chinese, Japanese, all these places, they do.
Yeah.
The United States and Canada pride themselves in, and probably Australia, they all pride themselves in, we are Canadian.
Yeah,
we are American.
But I think sometimes like we live. I think American identity is probably stronger than Canadian identity.
They're more patriotic for sure.
Yeah.
But so that's the thing though, because Canada, and I'm sure you would agree with this as well. Canada took their identity to be, we're not American, and that was like the point of it. So everything. For better or for worse.
Then we do like a pale imitation of everything that they do.
Exactly.
So
and
everyone knows Canadian Idol was a joke.
It came second.
Canada doesn't have talent.
No. Who wants to be smarter than a Canadian 5th grader? I don't know.
But I think there's culture within the provinces.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Maybe there's...
Well, there's definitely jokes at certain responses, right? I mean, expenses of these, right? Like
us being Albertan, it's probably a little bit different. But whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
But I think I love this movie. It was great.
Yeah.
It was a great choice. Movie. And I'm happy we kind of got the chance to watch some anime and do something that was Japanese, because having lived there and having watched so much of the different content from different J-horror places, and getting to read a lot of the different mangas and getting to I love this because I got to make the connection between it and Paranoia Agent, because I'd watched that 15 years ago, or however long it was ago. Would have been 15 years, 23.
Long time.
Math, don't make me do math. But I'd watched it a long time ago, around the time where it had come out. And so it's kind of nice to see, to like make that connection between that show and this. So yeah, it's always interesting to just go and watch just some random stuff. Yeah. And then like the horror genre itself, it's so connected anyways, so you end up making those connections, like with Aronofsky and what he was making too. So
I'm happy I sat down, and even though I wasn't sure about this movie as soon as I started watching it, but I'm so happy I stuck with it, because that movie is wonderful. This movie, I should say, is wonderful. Like, it's one of the I mean, obviously it's not one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's such a good watch that you have no problem watching it again.
No, it would be something that like I'd recommend. To, especially like a movie
for this reason, right?
Aficionado.
Yes, for people who like to study.
Yeah. People who like film,
they could probably get something out of this that even you and I have pulled out of, right? Like it's something, absolutely something for a lot of people to watch and to appreciate.
Yeah.
So no, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. Overall, did you find it scary? Then it's probably not as scary.
No, I don't think this one will be scary. It's more of like one of those horrific, unsettling movies, kind of like The Skeleton Key in that sense, where it's not necessarily one that there's no jump scares.
Nope.
There's
not at all. Just a creepy revelation.
Yes.
when you get that revelation and things start happening. I will say my favorite scene is probably having when she's getting chased and having Rumi's personality run by, and every time the animation is beautiful. Every time she runs by the wall and you just see the sparkling Mima, and then as soon as like a window appears and there's a reflection, and the reflection's done so well, and it's crazy Rumi that's actually there, it's unsettling. It's very, very well done.
My favorite scene is when she's doing her first acting scene in that room, where like she's perceiving everybody's stares on her, where she's repeating the line over and over. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I think that just it's really good foreshadowing for what's going to happen next.
Fair enough.
The English major in me fucking loves it. Anyways,
you're the English one.
I am. I don't think we'll rate this one right now. We got to figure out.
It's up there though.
Yeah, we'll figure out a format for how we want to keep doing this stuff. But I really appreciate people watching the last Fear Itself podcast. We're figuring out what we're doing with this still. But I think that just watching films, doing some reviews has been really great. And we're going to kind of broaden the horizons with that as well. So thanks again for Anthony. 2 weeks in a row.
Cheers. Thanks so much
for joining me for that. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. And remember, there's nothing to fear but fear itself.
That's good. You should keep that. That's really good. That's a good ending, yeah.
I thought of that. Not myself.
I was going to say, was that like just now? I just thought of that.